Welcome to Backbone Unlimited. My name is Matt Hartsky. In this episode, we're going to break down the fastest way to kill more elk, and it's probably not what a lot of elk hunters think, because the problem isn't that guys aren't working hard enough, it's that they're wasting time at every other stage of the process. They e-scout without a clear plan. They drop pins everywhere, but don't actually know what they're looking for. Then they get boots on the ground and they wander around hoping to find elk instead of confirming. And when the season starts, they hunt reactively, chasing bugles, chasing sign, or chasing moments. There's no structure, and that's what slows everything down. The fastest way to kill more elk isn't about moving faster or doing more. It's about eliminating wasted time and focusing only on what actually matters. If you're not familiar with who I am, I've been hunting and guiding Western big game for over 34 years, and I've been a professional strength conditioning and nutrition coach for more than 30 years, and I'm here to help you become a more successful and consistent elk hunter and outdoorsman. In this episode, I'm going to do my best to walk you through a complete system, from e-scouting to scouting to actual hunting and how to adjust along the way. This is a start to finish process you can follow, refine, and repeat, because once you stop wasting time, everything else is going to start to speed up, and that's when your results are going to follow. Step number one is to e-scout with a purpose, to filter before you go. If you want to speed up your success, it starts before you ever leave home. Most hunters treat e-scouting like a pin dropping exercise. They mark everything that looks good, big basins, open parks, water sources, and end up with a map full of options and no real plan. And that's the problem. E-scouting isn't about finding elk. It's about eliminating bad ground. You're filtering the mountain down to the few places that actually make sense for elk to live based on current conditions. So we start with security, maybe north-facing slopes and dark timber or broken terrain, places elk can hide, bed, and avoid pressure. Then look at feed. Is there quality forage close enough that elk don't have to travel far? Next is elevation. Where elk live changes with the season, so your areas need to match that. Too high or too low, and you're already behind. Then factor in access and pressure. Where are hunters likely to come from? Roads, trails, easy entry points, those all shape how elk use the landscape. From there, you identify movement features, benches, saddles, and side hill routes that connect feed to bedding, areas where elk can move efficiently while still staying protected. And this is where a lot of elk hunters go wrong. They keep too many spots. If everything looks good, nothing is prioritized. You need to narrow it down to just a few high quality areas you can actually focus on, because e-scouting is about eliminating 90% of the mountain before you ever step foot on it. Step number two is to scout to confirm, not just to explore randomly, right? Once you get boots on the ground, your job isn't to wander around hoping to find elk. It's to confirm whether your plan actually holds up in real conditions. Every step you take should answer a question. Is there fresh sign, or am I looking at something from weeks ago? Tracks, poop, beds, those details matter, but only if they're current. Old sign's going to keep you stuck in the wrong area if you don't recognize it. Next, you need to understand how wind actually behaves in that terrain. What looked clean on a map might swirl, stall, or shift in ways that make it unhuntable. You don't guess, you test it out. Then look at pressure. Are these tracks from other hunters, camps nearby, well-used trails, or easy access points? That tells you how elk are likely reacting and whether your original plan still makes sense. This is where a lot of hunters lose time. They wander. They cover ground without a purpose, hoping to find something, right? But random movement doesn't give you clear answers. It just creates more uncertainty. Instead, move with intent. You're either locating elk or you're confirming they've been there recently. If neither is happening, that's information too. It tells you it's time to adjust, because scouting isn't about exploration. It's about validation. Scouting doesn't find elk. It confirms if your original plan is right or not. Step number three is to find elk fast, your day one priority. When the hunt starts, your priority is pretty simple. Find elk as fast as possible. Not sign, not potential, not focused on killing. You're looking to find actual elk. That's it. This is where a lot of hunters lose valuable time. They ease into the hunt. They slowly work through areas they picked out on a map, hoping elk are going to show up. But if elk aren't there, you're not hunting, you're just spending time. Day one should be aggressive in the right way. You're glassing with intent. You're listening in areas where sound carries and elk are likely to communicate. You're moving through terrain that gives you visibility and information, not just hiking blindly through the timber. Every move is about gathering real time intel. You're asking, where are elk right now? How are they using this area today under the current conditions? And you need to cover ground efficiently early, not randomly, but strategically. Hit the high value locations. Check multiple areas if you need to. Eliminate what's not working very quickly. What you don't do is to commit too early just because a spot looked good or had sign. That doesn't mean you stay there all day. If you're not finding elk, you move. You keep searching until you make contact, because the moment you locate elk, everything changes. You shift from scouting to hunting. You slow down. You start applying a system. You begin working a real situation. But none of that happens until you're in the elk. And that's why this matters so much. The faster you find elk, the faster you can start hunting.
Hey, if you hunt public land elk and you're tired of grinding through random seasons, I built the elk hunting series of ebooks for you. Most hunters don't struggle because they lack effort. They struggle because they lack a system. And that's exactly why I built the elk hunting ebook series as a complete progressive framework for Western elk hunters who are done guessing and ready to hunt with intention. Volume 1 is going to be Foundations and Reality. I reset your mindset and expose the assumptions that quietly wreck seasons. In Volume 2, Finding Elk and Understanding Pressure, you'll learn how elk actually move under pressure so you can anticipate instead of react. In Volume 3, Terrain, Wind, and Position, I break down how to use landscape and thermals to consistently create opportunities. In Volume 4, Calling, Silence, and Pressure, sound becomes a decision tool, not an impulse. In Volume 5, Bow Hunting Execution, we're talking about close range strategy so you can finish your encounters. And in Volume 6, Late Season and Post Rut, we're talking about how elk shift after the rut and how to adapt when others quit. This is a system built for consistency. This isn't theory, it's a structured system to help you find elk, read country, and make confident decisions every season. Buy each volume individually or bundle them all to save 50% off at backboneunlimited.com.
Step number 4 is to hunt with a system, not reactions. What I mean by that is, once you're in elk, this is where a lot of hunters lose control of the situation. They shift from structure to just reacting to the elk. They hear a bugle and they go. They see movement and they push. They feel the moment building and start making decisions based on their emotions instead of an actual plan. And that's how a lot of opportunities fall apart. Instead, you need to run a system. Every encounter should move through the same process: locate, evaluate, position yourself, execute, adjust if needed, over and over and over again. That's what keeps you consistent even when things change. You locate elk, then immediately evaluate whether it's a winnable situation. You don't rush, you don't assume, you assess the wind, the terrain, other pressure, and elk position all before making a move. When you position yourself based on where elk are going and not where they are, you use terrain and wind to set the advantage for yourself before anything else happens. Execution comes next, but it's controlled. Whether you're calling or staying silent, moving or holding, it's all intentional. You're not forcing anything, you're letting the setup work. And if it breaks down, you adjust. What you don't do is just chase bugles without context or force encounters that don't make sense. That's reaction-based hunting, and it leads to inconsistent results. You might get lucky every now and then, but systems create control, because at the end of the day, killing elk doesn't come from chasing moments. It comes from running a system. Step number 5 is to eliminate time wasters. The real fastest way, right here. When people hear fastest way, they think speed, move faster, cover more ground, do more. That's not it. Speed in elk hunting comes from cutting mistakes. It comes from recognizing bad situations early and getting out of them before they cost you time, leaving areas that don't have fresh elk activity. walking away from setups where the wind isn't stable, not forcing a plan just because you've already invested time into it. That's where a lot of elk hunters lose days. They stay too long in dead spots. They keep working areas that should hold elk instead of accepting that they don't right now and then moving on. They chase old sign or old bugles that they heard days ago or weeks ago or yesterday's intel like it still applies today. It doesn't. Elk are constantly adjusting. So if you're not making decisions based on what's happening right now, you're already behind. And this is where decision making is going to separate you. You don't need to hunt necessarily harder. You need to think clearer, evaluate faster, move with purpose. Every decision either moves you closer to elk or keeps you stuck in the wrong place. And when you start eliminating those wasted decisions, everything's going to speed up for you. You're going to spend more time in elk, more time in winnable situations, and more time creating real opportunities. And that's the difference, because the fastest way to kill more elk isn't necessarily doing more, it's in wasting less. The fastest way to kill more elk is to stop wasting time on the wrong decisions. Step number 6 is to stack days and patterns. Your consistency builders, right? The biggest mistake hunters make after a tough day is just starting over from scratch. Maybe a new drainage, new plan, new guesses, and that resets everything. If I was starting over today, I would focus on stacking days, not restarting them. Every encounter, every piece of sign, every blown opportunity all give you information. And that information is what builds consistency over time. You start to see patterns, how elk are using a specific piece of terrain, how pressure is pushing them, what elevations they're favoring, when they're moving and when they're not. Those patterns don't show up in a single day. They build over multiple days in the same area. And that's where a lot of elk hunters miss it. They relocate too quickly, chasing a fresh start instead of refining what they've already learned. Instead, I would choose to stay in elk. If I've located them, I'm not leaving that area unless something clearly tells me to, unless I blow them out. I'm adjusting with it, changing position, changing timing, learning how those elk are using that ground right now. Because the more time you spend around elk, the more everything starts to make sense. Decisions get easier, movement becomes more predictable, and opportunities become repeatable. And that's how you build momentum in a hunt, not by bouncing around, but by stacking information and refining your approach. Because consistency doesn't come from starting over, it comes from stacking information day after day. The fastest way to kill more elk isn't about rushing, it's about efficiency. It's about cutting out everything that doesn't matter and only focusing on what actually moves you closer to elk. A lot of elk hunters think they need to do more, but in reality, they need to waste less. Waste less time in bad areas. Waste less time forcing poor setups. Waste less time chasing outdated information. And that's where speed comes from. And the truth is, most hunters take years to figure this out. They learn it the hard way through missed opportunities, lots of blown stalks, and seasons that never quite come together. I've been there. We slowly piece it together over time. But you don't have to, because I'm helping you with this progression from e-scouting to hunting to adjusting. That's the system that ties it all together. But it only works if you apply it as a whole, not just pieces of it. You can't skip steps. You can't shortcut the process. Each part builds on the next, and that's what creates the consistency. So if you want to speed things up, commit to the system, run it start to finish, and refine it as you go. Because when you do, everything tightens up, and that's when results are going to start showing up faster. Now, if you want to go deeper into elk movement, pressure patterns, terrain positioning, and structured decision making, that's exactly why I built the elk hunting series of ebooks. It's a progressive system designed to help you understand how elk actually use country and how to position yourself accordingly. I have a link to those ebooks in the description. If you want hands-on application and real-time breakdowns, we have an in-person Elk Camp 2026 that is built around this same philosophy: structure, preparation, and execution in real terrain. 90% of Elk Camp is going to be running you through real scenarios. You can check out Elk Camp at backboneunlimited.com. And if you want ongoing access to the Team Backbone community, classroom, my full digital vault of elk resources, private discussions, and direct communication to me for planning, you can join Team Backbone at backboneunlimited.com underneath our membership tab. Everything we talk about here is connected. Preparation is not a single video, it's a system. Thanks for being here. Until next time, train harder, hunt smarter, and never settle.